Welcome to Future Ready Live, where we talk about topics that will help CPAs, CGMAs, and their organizations prepare for change and transformation. I'm your host, Tom Hood, the EVP of Business Engagement and Growth at AICPA CIMA, the largest global body of professional certified accountants in the world. Today, we're going to be talking about the number 2 issue facing corporate finance pros, Gen AI and ethics, or as we might call it, responsible AI, with Jeff Easley, the general manager of the Responsible AI Institute. So joining me is Jeff Easley. Again, he's the general manager of Responsible AI Institute. He's a senior executive with significant experience at Goldman Sachs, USAA, and PwC in governance, risk, compliance, transformation, and product development. That's a mouthful and pretty impressive. His mission at RAI Institute will be to drive member value through assessments, benchmarks, and certification programs, including the Responsible AI Hub, which is a comprehensive online portal for individual and corporate members. Jeff, say hello to our audience.
Hi, Tom. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you here. So Jeff and I met at the CPA.com Executive Roundtable, where I think every one of the major software companies that were presenting mentioned responsible AI in some form or another in their sessions, because, not surprisingly, every piece of software in the accounting profession either has AI being built into it or will have AI being built into it. So this is why this is so important. So Gen AI showed up as our number 2 issue facing corporate finance senior leaders in our July 2023 in-person meeting of our Future of Finance Leadership Advisory Group. And that's why after meeting you, I said, we got to have you on this show. So tell us more about your role, your kind of what Responsible AI Institute is doing, and your vision for Responsible AI.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Tom. It's great to be here. I absolutely enjoyed the roundtable in New York and meeting those companies and founders. I'm Jeff Easley. I've been leading the Institute for about 6 months now as the general manager. We have an incredibly talented team, really focused on helping our members and the community adopt responsible AI. So, as you noted in my intro, I have an interesting background of both being on the invention side as well as the governance, risk, compliance side, which is an odd pairing, but it makes a lot of sense in terms of what we're trying to do now for the community. So, nonprofit, we're a member funded and member focused organization helping the community responsibly adopt these practices. And that means helping them get their houses in order. We can talk more about that in a minute, but what we really want to do is unlock the power of AI and mitigate the risks, most notably what we are calling responsible AI. So ethics is one of them, transparency, accountability, sort of things that are risks that could possibly do harm to people or even the planet. And so that's our carve out in terms of what we care about, what we're passionate about, and how we help our members figure out how to get their collective houses in order and their risk practices up to snuff, so that they can begin moving down this path and unlock that potential. It's super exciting what this can do. It was very exciting, delving into the accounting profession and all the amazing innovations that were presented at the roundtable and that are happening in that industry. Another just important step for us to band together and to just make sure that this is done in the right way, causing no harm, and also unlocking some amazing value for companies. And I think everyone is trying to navigate that right now. A lot of interest in this, a lot of proclamations, but not a whole lot of implementations yet, as I think most of the community is just trying to figure this out. And that's really what we do. We help you, get your practices in order, understand what risks and controls that you need to be thinking of, and effectively establish the right guardrails so that you can confidently go into that space and know that you're mitigating those risks.
Like you, we're a global nonprofit, and obviously because we're part of the accounting profession, especially the credentialed side, CPAs and CGMAs, ethics is a strong foundation and wish for us. And in fact, when we look at our corporate community, a lot of these senior finance leaders often are leading Gen AI projects inside their institutions, not just for internal, but sometimes for the customer-facing side. And I think it's because they have a great command of the data, right? They understand internal control and they understand data and the corporate data because they're responsible for financial reporting and in many cases, public financial reporting to the street, if you will. So I think that kind of puts an exclamation mark on this idea of responsible AI. Now, I want to hear what your perception was, because you sat through a bunch of the technology demos, and when they mentioned, how they're obviously adding in, they use the term responsible AI. I'm not sure they were following your exact framework, so to speak, but just give me your sense of what you heard in the room relative to the vendor community, all the folks that were building technologies and trying to serve our profession, and how they were thinking about AI as they build it in. What was your kind of takeaway from all that?
I was pleasantly surprised. And I'm guilty of coming in with some preconceived notions that there'll be resistance to something so new and transformative. And so, I was amazed by the inventiveness and the innovations that many of these companies are really bringing into the industry and in this profession. And afterwards now, of course, this makes sense. And of course, I believe our values match up very well in terms of you are effectively a community of assurance, right? And making sure things are accurate, correctly done, ethical, and many other things. There is amazing innovation that really unlocks the power of that. And I think within this industry, I was just blown away by how much innovation is truly occurring and how much sense it actually makes. Guilty again, not spending a lot of time in the accounting profession. I think that there's going to be an amazing increase in value in what I think your members provide to organizations and the financial system based on this. So it was very much a wow for me on how much innovation was going on. And then the second thing, of course, I was thrilled to see how much focus is being put on responsible AI by these companies. I think they know their audience. I think they know their customer, and I think it's critical in that profession to ensure that that's happening while unlocking again the power of what this can do. So, I was blown away, Tom. I thought it was a fantastic session. I learned so much, and very excited about where the whole profession is going.
Last year at our Future Finance Summit, at the end of the year, after a session on Gen AI by Gartner, one of the big insights from the group and Gartner was, if we finance don't lead this, we will be cleaning up the mess. Because obviously, if a whole bunch of people in an organization start playing around with data and creating all these Gen AI things going on, it could mess up a whole lot of the core systems. And finance and accounting typically are the custodians of all of that. And then we talked about how many members of our group are actually leading this, or cross-functional teams in their companies. So tell me a little bit about what are you seeing in corporate governance, and what are you seeing out there in the market relative to how companies are approaching this, et cetera?
Yeah, I guess first thing is, I think that comment or that sentiment is on point. It makes a lot of sense. And in terms of what we do, just to tie it back, we look at standards makers like yourselves, like NIST, like ISO, NGOs, as well as rules and regulations and laws. We look at that. The team continually assesses that, brings that together in terms of a schema to help people get ready for it. So it makes a lot of sense that there's a push inside of your community to really do this before, quote, there's a mess to clean up. And I couldn't agree more. Obviously we're huge advocates for what happens in policy and standards as one major control from a risk perspective to keeping these risks contained and reducing the unintended consequences. So fully advocate and support the push from your side to make sure that your hands are around it, make sure your community members and actual CPAs are educated, have this built into what they do, and can join the community to offer that assurance, or just make sure that we're all helping to contain the risk. So totally agree with that. And I would say that there's more than just what we can control and we can do. And a lot of folks, the first reaction, and I come from 30 years of being in the financial services side, not necessarily accounting services, but still a highly regulated industry. And I think early reaction is, all right, let's see what the regulators are going to say, what lawmakers are going to say. It's almost a standard, what are we going to have to comply with? And not everyone's like that, but it's a bit of a, over generalization, but still there's a culture of let's wait and see. We definitely don't want people to wait and see. And I think everyone is feeling the pressure to get out there and do something, whether their customers or their board is asking, or their shareholders. So I know there's tons of pressure for organizations, companies to act, but they're understandably worried about doing something, and then maybe a regulation or whatever sort of throws off their investment. We say don't wait. There are ways to get pretty close. None of us know what the regulation is going to be, or the laws of the land. There's certainly tons of activity, and we could spend a whole hour just on that. But you can get pretty good if you are leveraging a lot of what's available today. We leverage the NIST RMF framework, the National Institute of Science and Technology. We also leverage the ISO 42001 standard, as well as the EU AI Act. And so none of this is a guarantee, but should give you lots of confidence that if you build into your risk management practices a lot of these controls that are laid out in these standards, even these laws, you're going to be in pretty good shape, especially as people know in these industries, you don't necessarily get a regulator telling you what to do. You just have to do it and see what they think. Yeah. It's a typical dance. And so I would expect that to continue. So if you're using all of these wonderful standards, including whatever the AICPA is advocating, you're going to be in good shape enough to get going. And so again, I'm on the side of unlocking the power of this. But as my unique background says, I also have a super healthy appetite or appreciation, I should say, for containing these risks and doing your thinking and your homework to make sure that you won't do harm to people or the planet, simply said. So, I think the worries are merited, and we applaud any push in terms of controls or guidelines or anything else that you guys would do for your community members.
Well, I think so I've already taken a note down that I think we need to have you join our future finance group for a session. We meet every other month. If I would have known ahead of time, we would have tried to get you on our summit agenda, but that's been locked down for a couple months now. But we do have those every other month, 90-minute meetings. And I think that would be a topic we tee up to our group. You also showed and talked about your responsible AI framework. Can you describe that quickly? I know, and then maybe at some point you give us the graphic and we can drop it in the show notes. Sure. For this, right? But I thought that was pretty impressive. And that's getting to what you're talking about, I think.
Right. Yeah. So going a little bit lower in detail, again, it's not a secret formula. we're leveraging, like many others, the NIST or NIST RMF framework. We're leveraging ISO 42001. We're also pulling from other things like pending legislation and EU AI Act. But think of it this way: it's our view of the best controls that we can find out there that are pertaining to what we consider responsible AI practices, and that has a lot to do on the ethics side, on accountability, fairness, transparency. Roughly human-centeredness, risks that really play in that space as we see them, and we put all that together. And I'm calling it a schema, but it's our own, set of controls and guidance that we use to sit with our members and go through their practices, understand what they're doing, what they have, what gaps they might have, and help them create a blueprint and a roadmap for making that happen. We're not a technical team. We don't build things. We don't provide professional services. We are a nonprofit, and very passionate about that and giving back to the community. So we feel like that's been the most useful thing we've been doing so far. We have other plans and ideas of improving that, but effectively we sit with you as an organization. It might take a month, it might take a couple of months, but we're not on a timeline. Our goal is to help you, and we go through what you have and help you understand what we think is best practice, and then where we think you can go with us, and even what we see other members doing that could be beneficial insights for you. And similar to your very effective roundtable, we also want to get folks together and help them help each other, and just continue in the community to promote these responsible AI practices. So that's effectively what we do. That's our framework. Obviously, you can go a lot deeper than that, but it's been very helpful to a number of organizations, and we have more that are going through it now. So, we're always happy to help. We're a nonprofit. Whether you want to join as a member or not, that's your call. But we absolutely open to having conversations with folks to help them just get started. And I think, Tom, that's the main thing I'm hearing is we know we need to do this. We have great ideas. We're very risk conscious and worried about what could go wrong. How do we get started? How do we just start moving down the path? And I think I think what our approach offers is a bit of a structure to help you do that. And last thing I'll say is, just because the technology itself is incredibly novel and exciting and potentially transformational, the risk management side doesn't have to be invented. It already exists. And again, I'm coming from long-time banking and investing background, super heavy regulatory environments. The practices in place, at least in that industry, I can confirm, are adequate. It's a matter of making sure you're capturing these risks appropriately. You're designing and implementing effective controls. This isn't new to risk and compliance professionals. It's a matter of including these, thinking through them, and the work would really be, what is the best technical way to build controls, to monitor them, to check them for the right thresholds, to make sure that these actual rails are in place for your capabilities to operate within. And the last thing I'll say is, and yes, many companies out there are not going to be creating their own large language models or foundational models because it's too hard, too expensive. So there's also a lot of work to help folks do that third-party risk management effectively, where you are bringing someone else's tools, and you need to be. It doesn't matter whether they're yours or someone else's. You are on the hook for it, and there are a lot of effective risk management processes to take care of that. So that's effectively what we do, and we're happy to just even have open conversations with anyone to help.
Awesome. Well, a couple of my takeaways here, and this reminded me of the conversation you and I had up there when I said, you know what, Jeff, I think there's a connection here to the profession's ESG work. And then you jump to the notion of the impact of AI computing on the environment, which that's a legitimate one, but that's not one we were really thinking about. I'm thinking about the governance part. So what you're talking about, responsible AI, seems to me neatly fit into our efforts to make corporate governance better in a more sustainable way, which isn't just about the environment, right? It's about all kinds of best practices. So I feel like that might be another follow-up conversation we have, but clearly that might be where we bring you into our future finance leadership group on one of those calls and have this conversation. So you could be an individual member or a corporate member or both, I guess. How does that work?
Right. Our individual memberships are free. And you get access to our educational materials, our digital assets, and it's a fancy word for things we've done for members that are helpful for them. We make available as part of our mission to the community, and it's free membership to get access to that. Plus, our policy team does a great job tracking what's happening out there. We have lots of great articles and blog posts about views on things and what might be coming down the pipe and what might be changing or not changing based on new administrations, which is very, very current these days. So that's all free. We do ask, just in terms of our operating model, we ask for contributions from corporate members to help us help us with our team, to take care of them and do the process that I mentioned earlier. And so that's effectively the two forms of membership that we have.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to be signing up today because I didn't know about that piece. And we will work on getting you into our group probably into the first of the new year. By the way, for anyone here, follow Jeff on LinkedIn, linkedin.com, Jeff Easley, Easley. You can follow them on Twitter. It's at Responsible AI, all one word. And their website is www.responsible.ai. So for more information, you can connect and reach out to Jeff. Jeff, this has been fantastic. I want to thank you for joining me. And for my audience out there, don't miss other Future Ready Live sessions back here on LinkedIn, the first and third Tuesday of each month at noon Eastern. We'll see you then. Thanks again, Jeff, for being here.
Thank you, Tom. Enjoyed it.